Welcome back to UK Homicide. Stephen Marshall, aged 38, lodged in a flat belonging to his drinking buddy, Geoffrey Howe, aged 49, in Southgate, London. He stayed there without paying rent, along with his girlfriend Sarah Bush, 21, from Southgate, who was a sex worker. They stole Howe's food and refused to leave after promising to do so. Geoffrey Howe was a kitchen salesman who worked throughout the UK and was even a chef in Italy. His brother described him as a jovial, charming character who had a heart of gold and would get on with anyone. Sarah Bush, who had spent most of her childhood in care, met Marshall when he hired her for sex work. He was very controlling and even made her change her name. Beginning on 22 March 2009, 5 body parts were found scattered across Leicestershire and Hertfordshire. This victim would be darkly nicknamed the Jigsaw Man. On the 22nd March, a left leg with the foot attached was found in a green holdall in a lay-by on the A507 in Cottard, Hertfordshire.
I was out in the tractor when something at the bottom of the field caught my eye. I thought, well, I'll stop and have a look. The bag felt heavy. I thought, well, I'll have a look inside. Realised that maybe I shouldn't look any further and went back to phone the police.
What is it? An animal or something? Hidden to space?
His expression just changed.
It was like a toad.
The green holdall found here in a remote area of Hertfordshire contained human flesh, a butchered leg severed at the thigh.
A left forearm, dismembered at the elbow and wrist, was found on a grass verge on 29th March. 2 days later, a head was unearthed by a farmer in a cattle pen in a field in Asfordby, Leicestershire. The flesh had been removed, and the eyes, ears, tongue and neck had been cut off. The head size, shape and dimension all pointed to this being a male victim.
7 days after the first grim find came the second, an arm lying by the side of the road, dumped 25 miles from where the leg was found. Then, 2 days later, a third find.
So, yeah. And they found a skull. Where? Leicestershire.
On the 7th April, a right leg was found in a holdall near the A10 in Hertfordshire. Police determined it came from an adult, 5'6" to 5'10" tall. They extracted DNA from the leg and ran it through the national database, but didn't get any hits, so whoever the leg belonged to had no criminal history. 3 days later, on the 11th April, a torso, right arm and upper left arm were discovered in a ditch by a walker near High Cross, Hertfordshire. It was inside a green suitcase, the same brand as the holdall in the first find.
The disturbing news of a fourth discovery was quickly followed by a fifth, this time a torso disposed of in a dike.
So who did the dismembered parts belong to, and who carried out this macabre act? The police issued numerous appeals seeking to find out the identity of the Jigsaw victim. Detective Superintendent Michael Hanlon from the Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit led the 100-officer murder investigation, named Operation Abnet. Police released a picture of the torso suitcase and revealed that the victim was overweight, suffered from eczema, had bleached skin pigmentation on his legs, a fungal infection on his toenails, and was missing 2 front teeth. The police kept details of the dismemberment from the public to avoid panic. A friend of Howe visited his flat in March 2009 and found Marshall and Bush still living there. After trying to phone him and hearing he had not been seen, she reported him as a missing person on the 15th of March. Howe's adopted brother John visited the flat on the 28th March and was told by Bush that Howe had not collected rent for a while and had left with his belongings. Howe's mother, who usually received calls from him several times a week, also reported his disappearance.
We've just had a call about a missing person. He normally speaks to his mother at least once a day, and she hasn't heard from him in over a month.
Did you fit the description of the victim?
Oh, yes.
The missing man was Jeffrey Howe. When detectives ran checks on his background, they discovered he'd recently taken in two lodgers, Stephen Marshall and his girlfriend, Sarah Bush.
Police officers went to the flat at 11:30 on the morning of 16th March and forced entry when there was no answer. There was no visible sign of blood, and when questioned, the duo said that, as far as they knew, he was alive. Leading up to the murder, Marshall and Bush treated his home as if it were their own. Bush even applied for housing benefits, pretending she lived alone while submitting documents signed by Marshall, pretending to be Howe. His neighbors reported not seeing him or his two Jaguar cars for about 6 months, believing that he rented out his ground floor, 2-bedroom flat. After extensive forensic and DNA testing, the police were able to use the mutilated skulls, teeth, and dental records to positively confirm the dismembered body as Howe. The couple were arrested in late April 2009. The arresting officer said Marshall was very, very nervous, jittery, his leg was shaking. Sarah Bush was uncomfortable, and at that point I knew that Jeffrey Howe was going to be our victim. After being taken to a station in Hertfordshire for questioning, Bush told police that Marshall suffered mood swings and that she had been planning to leave him. Conversely, Marshall gave no comment to police questioning. Howe was publicly named as the victim on the 23rd April. In a further, more detailed post-arrest search, blood was found in the flat bedroom, bathroom, under the carpet, and in Howe's car after it was recovered after being sold. Green fibers from a t-shirt in Marshall's bedroom matched fibers on duct tape on the body parts.
But in interview, Marshall remained calm.
Are you responsible for the killing and the dismembering of your friend Jeffrey Howe? If so, why did you kill and dismember Jeffrey Howe?
With Marshall saying nothing, detectives needed answers.
And the clock was ticking. Detectives had just 72 hours to charge their prime suspects or watch them walk away free.
With the suspect still in custody, forensics began the painstaking search of Jeffrey's home.
It was only through thorough examination that we actually established that the flat was, in fact, the murder scene. It was heavily blood-stained areas underneath the carpet. That blood belonged to Jeffrey Howe.
The killer then moved to the ensuite bathroom to dismember the body.
The trial began on the 12th January 2010 at St. Albans Crown Court. Stuart Trimmer QC acted as prosecutor. The court heard that Marshall previously threatened to get rid of Bush's partner in Epping Forest and to dispose of another woman. He had boasted to her of having considerable experience of disposing of bodies. A friend of Bush told the court that when drunk, she confessed to friends that she helped kill Howe after Marshall stabbed him in the back by placing a pillow over his face to stop the noise. Another friend, Danielle Matthews, said Bush told her she had seen the murder and that Howe had laughed at Marshall when he had earlier threatened to kill him unless he left the flat. Marshall initially denied murder and only admitted to helping dismember and dispose of the body, and admitted perverting the course of justice and intending to prevent a coroner from holding an inquest. Bush continued to deny all charges.
Although forensics placed Marshall at the scene of the crime, he repeatedly denied the killing. It was only when detectives looked at Jeffrey's finances that the full extent of Marshall's murderous plot was uncovered.
The motive was money.
The coroner revealed that Howe was stabbed twice in the back with a 4-inch blade, with one of the wounds puncturing his lung. It was suggested that he may have been alive for up to an hour afterwards. Marshall then, quote, skillfully and cleanly removed Howe's limbs, which Home Office pathologist Simon Poole estimated would have taken at least 12 hours. After the murder, they used Howe's bank account to buy a laptop, shoes, takeaways, and other consumer goods and food. They set up an account with online retailer Littlewoods, making some purchases on a computer in St. Albans Library. They wrote forged checks to clear his account and sold his belongings, including his mobile phone, furniture, and car. The 28th January 2010 edition of the Mercury reported that a woman, who could not be named for legal reasons, told St. Albans Crown Court that Marshall had dismembered bodies for the notorious Adams crime family in London. She added that Marshall had threatened to cut her into little pieces once, and she would be spread around the country. Via his lawyer, Peter Doyle, Marshall admitted in court on the 1st February to dismembering 4 more bodies between 1995 and 1998 and disposing of them in Epping Forest when he worked for the Adams crime family and criminal godfather Terry Adams, who had built up an estimated fortune of £200 million through a vast racketeering and drug trafficking empire, which was linked to 25 murders. This admission surprised the police, but Marshall refused to give them more details.
And that remarkable admission coming at the end.
Yeah, it was a dramatic moment towards the end of the trial that took everyone by surprise. Marshall admitted through his barrister to dismembering 4 other people in the 1990s. An unidentified witness told the court that during this time, Marshall worked for a notorious North London gang. He was what the mob like to call a cleaner, the man who gets rid of evidence after crimes. Now, the bodies were apparently brought to him after gangland hits, and he would then cut them up. Now, obviously, police now are trying to find out as much about these crimes as they can, and Marshall is central to that.
Detective Superintendent Michael Hanlon said later, "We haven't identified any of the victims, but it is a line of inquiry we will be pursuing. We will be speaking to Marshall to see if he will give further details." On the 29th January, 3 weeks into the trial, Marshall changed his plea to guilty of murder. Bush would change her plea to guilty 2 days later, on a 1st February. Bush was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months for perverting the course of justice by helping Marshall take Howe's head to Leicestershire, and was given a concurrent sentence of 2 years and 3 months for providing false information. She was acquitted of murder and would serve a total of 45 months. Her whereabouts today are unknown. Marshall was imprisoned for a minimum of 36 years. The judge, Jeremy Cook, ruled that little credit could be given for the change of plea given the overwhelming evidence. He dismissed his claim that he was on the verge of drug-induced suicide when he stabbed his victim in bed. Marshall is ineligible for parole until 2046, when he will be 74, and only then if he is no longer deemed a risk to the public. C.I. Hanlon said, "Marshall is pure evil at the end of the day. Jeff was a decent, everyday bloke, trying to help his friends out by letting them have somewhere to stay, and that trust in his friends had been abused in the worst way possible. This was a horrific crime fueled by greed. Not only did Stephen Marshall callously kill Jeffrey Howe, both he and Sarah Bush clearly had no respect for his dignity in the actions they took following his death. As a result of his confession to killing and dismembering 4 other people, he is at a much higher risk of attack in prison. Insiders believe he and possibly his relatives will have to be protected against revenge attacks to ensure nobody can stop him from any future testimony." After the trial concluded, his prior criminal record was released. It revealed convictions for criminal damage, assault, battery, cocaine possession, possessing a firearm, and attacking his first wife in 2003. He was arrested on suspicion of murdering Mineshna Grecha in 1996 when his burnt body was found. He was never charged for this offense, but did appear as a witness. Bush's record had 2 prior cautions for possession of cannabis and assault. Marshall was refused leave to appeal his conviction and sentence in October 2010. The Court of Appeal said the horrific nature of this case warranted the full 36-year prison term. Marshall and Bush undoubtedly took advantage of House's generosity. They colluded to take over his life and possessions in the most sickening way. This callous murder clearly showed no respect for him, his family, friends, and dignity. Howe's hands or any part of the other 4 bodies have been found to date. Marshall is still known by the disturbing label, the Jigsaw Killer. Thanks for listening to this case. Take care, and I will see you in the following case.